Be careful. Yes, face forward. Face this way again. Yes, please take the starting position with both arms. Yes, that's good. What you can see among all of you is those whose orbits converge at one point. There are some people whose orbit is divided into 2 points. For us, our orbit is single point for now. The difference between having 1 point orbit and 2 points is when you face and prepare, you will immediately understand when you actually clash, especially the upper row. There are parts where you must capture the opponent's square. Therefore, as much as possible, it is desirable to practice in a way that attaches directly to 1 point. Practice is recommended. First, take a look. I will follow the method you have chosen as it is. Right now, I can see all of your fist. Then I will strike again. I can't see your fist here. When the trajectory converges to 1 point, the fist becomes invisible. If the fist is invisible, even if you react at the moment you see it just before, it will be too late. Therefore, the older style of punching, especially for the traditional way of punching, intentionally rubbing up from below in this way. So without that, now when you notice it, everyone's upper row becomes 2 points. Please try to aim for 1 point as much as possible in the upper and lower rows. Please remember that my own practice, to be clear, when pulling back the thrust as you have been doing, in basic training we pull back, but from the stage where personal practice comes in, the position for pulling back the thrust is all here. Now, how everyone does it, it's up to everyone. It's different from practicing on your own and basic practice. Please do it while understanding that humans move their shoulders unconsciously. Yet, try to do your own practice without moving much. The difference between doing this or not. Let's try it now. Well, you come here for a moment. Yes, turn towards the other side, about the usual form that you always do. Yes, that's good. Right now, your shoulders are quite forward when looking at this. This is not a mistake when actually using it. It's okay to stick your shoulders out more. In other words, when doing basic exercises, it's better to pull your shoulders back more. The reason is because please touch your back a little. A little higher is fine, about that much. Just understand how the muscles differ. You don't need strength at first, but with a middle thrust, it should be thrust like this. Just have the sensation of this muscle here. This is how everyone is doing it. Are the same muscles being used? They are not being used much, right? Then I will smooth. It is being used now, isn't it? So the person who created this muscle in this way, even if they come forward, they can use the same muscle. If you stick out your shoulders from the beginning, the muscle that should be used originally will not be used. If the muscle that should be used is not used, it means that most of the power of the thrust comes from the arms. At that point, the old teachers, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. The old teachers say you shouldn't shrug your shoulders. That's what they mean by saying that. So, in order to develop muscle usage, please thrust as straight as possible. When you can master that, thrust your shoulders forward with all your might. You can thrust even more. So, it's about dividing this. Whether you can practice it or not, in everyday matches, it often becomes a habit to stick out your shoulders too much. When you always practice like that, the muscles that should be used originally are used. Unused forms seep into the body. The old teachers didn't like that, you know? So the body movements when creating a technique and the movements to master it are completely different. I want you to understand that stage. High-level thrust. The high-level thrust enters from below the hand. This is the way of the high-level thrust. The lower thrust is done in reverse in a form that covers from above. Taking it up is the correct way to initiate. Let's try doing this while keeping it firmly in mind. We will experiment on what is different from now on. Please get ready. Okay? I will do a normal lower thrust. Just receive the lower thrust as it is. That's all. I will do a lower thrust. Let's do it one more time. Understood. Do you understand this? I just raised my voice like this. Right now, this person is reacting while not receiving the mid-level attack. Because they are reacting while not receiving the mid-level attack for a moment. Actually, will this go into the lower level? Even if you try to receive the lower level attack midway, it won't make it in time. Thank you for that much. That's how it is with people. So for those who are 50 years old, the last thing to do is a form called super link. As for those who are super link, they enter with a leaking hand thrust. Once you enter like this, you thrust from above. The reason why you thrust like this and not like that, to tell you the truth, I teach that at the very end. Until then, everyone just thrusts like this diligently. As you understand this trajectory, you will see how easily the lower thrust enters with a pop. I will explain it so you understand a front kick. To tell the truth, the lower abdomen and muscles are not good. This is the original traditional form of a front kick. So the target is the so-called bladder area and muscles. This is the classical form. A groove strike is a front kick. It would be like asking why we don't kick. There is no such thing as kicking against the original grooving. It simply does not exist. However, kicking after destabilizing the opponent and hitting the grooving has been there from the beginning. This is strictly a kick after destabilizing. What we are aiming for, while standing in traditional forms, does not target muscles or bladder at all. The trajectory. And what is known as the Gashoryu kick, also in the context of the Tsurite small knife techniques. The kicking method is different. In the context of Tsurite small knife techniques, the trajectory of the kick is different. Rather than the trajectory, the use of the supporting leg is different. Take a closer look. At this point, this is the Aikido style of Aiju. It's the same with the shoulders. Basically, in the Aikido style of Aiju, this extends. Basically, you don't bend your knees. So rather in a state of half hip, the kicking with a popping sound. This is the original kicking style of Aiju. So this is not very bent. This is the characteristic. Please try it while understanding this. When kicking with the side sword, there are cases where you kick from the outside and cases where you kick from the inside. Generally speaking, kicking from the outside is safer. Safety means kicking out in front first. I find it very difficult to counterattack because it's safe at this moment. Instead of kicking sideways, the old teachers would strike this straight down and then with a crack. Do you understand? If you slam this down, this person will absolutely not be able to stand up. You kicked this, didn't you? It's a bit high now, isn't it? Even we can kick this high. I am somewhat in the middle. I am giving harsh guidance, but actually it tends to be like this. This is correct. And now I also kick like this. It's a story from a slightly higher perspective. When aiming for the inside, slightly higher is more effective. While understanding this, where and how to kick, in that way, think about your own kicks. In short, try to use them differently. At this time, it tends to slip. The one who takes this is naturally strong. So should I aim from the inside or should I aim from the outside and switch techniques? In its original form, the moment you face the strike, you take this, right? Dropping this with a bang is an old form of instant sword kick. I will lift it like this. Here, the opponent's leg a little, rather than winning and landing the leg, kicking out downwards. This is the original way from ancient times. So for those at 50 degrees, this kind of form, of course, with this hand completely taking the opponent down, Actually, grabbing and holding the opponent's hand and applying a quick sword kick is enjoyable. So, because I'm doing it with my shoulder, it doesn't mean you have to do it this way in reality. If you don't understand the meaning, you tend to find such a form enjoyable. The reason for doing this is just to incorporate this kind of muscle movement into your body. When you actually use it, the movement feels completely different. That's why it's fun. So, please practice after understanding that a quick sword kick is this kind of thing. It doesn't come out from the shoulder. This technique comes out when the prerequisite is that the opponent is thrown, because there is a throwing technique or a trick on the back of the shoulder. As I told you many times at the seminar, that the throwing technique or reverse technique is included in the shoulder, especially in the case of the 50-style system. When you know that, this technology comes out. Naturally, the fact that there is this technique is a prerequisite that there is naturally a light skill ahead of it. We practiced a lot of light skills, just don't come out in your shoulders. Sometimes old stubborn teachers say or write that the technique that is not on their shoulders is not karate. Do it in a form that ignores the application, because there is an infinite change if it actually changes. Change is not just a lesson. Change techniques are not taught by people in their own training. It is older and older when you teach me the changing skills. Each change technique is correct for that person. My right technique is never right for you. The tricks you wear, I probably can't do at all somewhere different, because people have different faces. It is natural. When you just teach people, you don't teach the difference. If you teach me the root muscle, the rest is what comes from this muscle telling. This is a bit of a boat. The so-called form is often used in such a case. Small hands back, repeal an Aikido system. We said it was a reverse throw. You don't know how to throw it. It is a small hand return. You use these techniques at this time. This is solid. When to use heel kick? Be sure to remember. Gasso frequently uses this type of kicking technique, measuring kick. Taking this at this moment is a measuring kick. So you can take this and take it here as it is. One more, if you want to kick this way from now on. Because there are two kinds. Understand that there is. Please practice yourself. This is surprisingly effective. There are many effective ways to use it, depending on whether you use measurements or hook it in front with your heel. Doing it in this particular way can surprisingly cause very strong damage. While understanding that, depending on how the opponent stands, using measurements may be more effective. So everyone, try to do this freely and come up with your own ideas. Originally, in the 50 techniques, there is no technique called upper block in the upper level. In the 50th generation, the middle level block is originally referred to as the upper level block by raising it upwards. As for when the upper level block started to be incorporated, basically, it was through the guidance of Miyagi Chojun under Ito Anko that the upper level raising block was adopted within the 50th generation. This is a fact. However, that person clearly states that he is not a disciple of Ito Anko. He visited Ito Anko and heard about such blocks and techniques during their conversations. It's true that I was very conscious of my hands. That's why I was able to receive the technique. To tell you the truth, from the perspective of the 50th school, there is nothing more dangerous than receiving the technique. Just as a muscle movement, there is a method to build shoulder muscles, and I'm doing it frequently now. This is how we actually receive a high-level technique. This is how it's done in the traditional form. When the left high-level strike comes, in the original 50th school, this is how you take it. You just need to raise the middle block directly to the upper level. This is the original way of the 50 schools. Practice entering completely to take it the moment you receive it. You must always do this. Please understand this as well. So one more thing. I will explain it in the form of a block for now. In reality, the blocker has techniques other than blocking. They cannot be fixed on just blocking. So, learn from the shoulders of the old teachers. In the past, it didn't have a name, right? This technique was done in a way of use this technique like this, use this technique like this. Because it's troublesome when teaching in a group without a name. Before you know it, a name is created, especially the words used in Okinawa. Now, words created on the mainland account for 80% in reverse. There are very few words that originally existed. About 80% mostly use words created here. When I directly teach at my place, I don't really mention the names of receiving techniques or names much. But when playing with everyone, you really can't do it without a name. Having a name often fixes the technique. So it's for receiving the upper level to receive the upper level. If you do it with a technique of receiving the middle level by receiving the middle level, however, receiving the middle level doesn't necessarily mean receiving the middle level. If you receive the middle level like this is not receiving the middle level, right? This changes to a miss. This changes only to a technique, instantly from here. Ideally, when it's 50 degrees, pushing like this while taking it is correct. If you take it like this, naturally you can take the opponent in reverse, just like this. We can still be together from now on. If we do this, ultimately, if we fix this kind of division as this kind of receiving technique, it won't be usable for this. But if we don't fix it, we can use it for anything. In the lower row, if it's that, then it's all like that. I think it's better for teachers and practitioners to practice with that kind of sense from now on. Middle row receiving. Interesting patterns of this middle row receiving are emerging. Let's take a closer look at this. Either way, is it okay because the teacher is nearby? Try receiving the middle level one more time. He is from the full combo style, so his movements are distinctive. Please continue as you are. One more time. Okay, his movements are slightly different in the use of elbows, a bit rigid and flexible. It's still close to the traditional form, right? He's doing it while exposing the shoulders now. Even with just one repetition, it feels strong with power. Let's experiment a little on whether it's really okay. Please wait a moment. Get ready on the left side. I will throw a left punch. Just like this. Please try to receive it with your left hand. See how the use of the shoulder and elbow makes a difference. That's why we're doing this. Left punch. Try to grab it firmly here. The receiving side is involved, right? The receiving side is involved, right? I will do this, bring this elbow like this. Please try to bring the elbow in this way. Next, it will enter like this. It's entering like this. At that time, instead of bouncing sideways, move the elbow and shoulder. Move the shoulder as much as possible. Elbow slips in smoothly. No matter how hard I try, it won't go in. You'll understand right away if you try this experiment. The way he's doing it, the way the boxer is doing it, they are using the original backhand strike technique here. It's not a defensive posture. When it's us, for example, we take this form, the striking technique within this form. There are straight punches in striking, but this is the way of striking like this. Right now, we are doing it as a receiving technique. So it becomes like this. For us, this is a strike, but however, all the teachers of the full pon style say they received a mid-level strike with this. It's fine if it's for physical conditioning. But if you ask if they really receive it like this, personally, I don't actually make this movement. The purpose of this training is for what? How to use the elbow, how to use the bones. In actual movement, it is just in time for what you are gripping, but it is slow. It is faster to open. If you are actually doing it in a match, you wouldn't understand. So why do we grip in the basics? Simply put, gripping is more rational for building muscles. Frankly speaking, in actual combat, it is faster to open, right? You understand that it is faster to open, don't you? While understanding that, the reason for doing this is because in the end, it just becomes wasted effort. If you're going to build muscles for this technique, you need to master how to use this and the elbow properly. It's not necessary for this to directly lead to a technique. People who can build these muscles, it's good if they can connect to techniques like this. Once you can use the correct muscles, you don't need anything else. The hands always cross for a mid-level block, right? What do you think the hand on the opposite side is for? Actually, the hand on the opposite side is more important. Right, Tsuki. Please do chudan. Beginners are easily surprised. Advanced players are generally bad at resolving. Advanced players are generally bad at resolving. Advanced players are easily surprised. Advanced players are generally bad at resolving. Once you master the movement of resolving, you can incorporate it into various techniques. When the chudan comes in, you should take it like this. So if you take this move and this move together, the characteristic of this technique is that it can go into a good shape no matter how it moves in reverse. That's why it's called this technique. So it's like a snap. Yes. Let's play this hand one more time. When you get on top, if you press the pressure point, the opponent cannot move. The fun of pressure points also seems like this. Normally, you would use arm strength to remove it, but if you understand the pressure point, you can remove a person's body with just one finger. So, remember that. Let me have you hold it for a moment. Since there is a microphone, please remove the microphone and try holding it. No matter how much you resist at this moment, it won't work. You can't resist, right? This is slowly, so as not to advance from the difference in your body. Let's take a look at this. Here by chance, I am a reflexologist. And a specialist in acupressure, so I can do this because I understand how it works. You don't need to move a lot of pieces like a chess master. For everyone, just knowing a few key points is enough. For now, let's focus on the key points that can be used safely for 30 minutes. Once you understand key points at this level, anyone can do this level of task. Are you going to kick the lower row? Since we're here, I'll say this as well. From our position, this is a lower level strike. It's fine to strike while using this area. It's fine to strike while using this area. This is a lower level strike. It's fine to strike while using this area. However, to receive a lower level strike, to receive means you must not let go of the opponent's power. So if you strike with a kick in this form, especially on the inside, there is an impact when hit, but it is completely ineffective on the outside. I'll have you do the experiment. I'm doing the experiment now by chance, just like before. Please try receiving on the left. It's easier to understand that way. I think it's a bit hard to understand if you receive on the right. Please stand normally. Let me try it slowly once. Remember this form and receive it firmly in that form. Do you know why? When the orbit and the orbit collide, the force in front prevails. Instead, I say, bring your hands here, bring this move here. Do this with extreme examples. I do this in extreme form now. Please bring it here as it is. Use little power. You'll get in just by doing it with pakan. It's flowing. How to bring the power of the opponent effectively. So what he's doing is, it's really effective at such a time. One more. Do the current move as it is, against this front kick at this time. This is valid because it will shock me. One more time. Do you understand? The human body is brittle on this side of the bone. So when I get kicked by this person and I do it with pakan, it will shock me. And this side has muscle. Because I have muscle, I can't get this out. Burn and enter as it is. Receiving technique is just... You got in, but you got out. I can't get out of it. There's almost no impact. So the trajectory of the technique, I want you to remember, the orbit, exactly in orbit. Thank you. This is especially common among those who do wind soul. At that time, imitate the left and kick the right, because it works insanely. But on the left, if you go in that shape, you will get in. If you get stuck in, the kick will end in one shot. When the next thrusting comes, I'm not ready. I can't make it when the tricks are continuous. Even if the technique continues, it is only necessary to kick in time. Really, like now. If you just lightly brush it off and go with the flow, I'll be done for. That's why things like the lower level technique and such need to be firmly. The reason why any lower level technique won't work is because by acquiring soft movements, it directly leads to techniques in throwing, as I've instructed before, so that it's a bit visible, whether you do it on the right. It's fine to do it on the right or either way. A thrust from above is also fine. Here I go. Please watch the trajectory of this move. This is the fact that it looks like it won't collapse, but collapses is this. I have done this many times. To collapse a person, it's actually better to do it that way. Just reverse it like that. I can guide anywhere. Once you think you've taken it from the other side, it's in this direction. Remember the trajectory of the lower level receiver firmly. In the trajectory of the lower level receiver, please practice in a way that you can guide people. I'm just saying. In order to master this, you need to train a little with a sanchin net. It's a bit tough to do it with just a little practice. It doesn't mean there is a difference in arm strength. Please give it a try. Move a little to the left, probably this way. With this grip, it doesn't work at all. I think this is not the grip I use. This is with a sanchin net. By developing this kind of adaptability with a sanchin net, the technique will become different. You probably skip this part. So, when using a sanchin net or your partner's tool, anyone can do this level of thing. I can make it so that everyone can do it. Try taking a posture in a slightly clenched shape of the fingers. Shape of holding paper. There is no mistake at this stage. You must hold the sanchin net here. Do not grip the inside of the paper with your fingers. Hold it here, point your fingers like this, and hold it here. So this is a normal grip, right? Everyone understand? This is a normal grip. When learning how to grip using a sanchin net, bend your thumb like this and hold the opponent's here. If you can't do this, it's no good. When this unconsciously comes out, and this comes, the opponent will start to crumble in this way. So the basic grip paper cannot be done by those with a different right. This does not change drastically, so it is the same practice, but rather than striking, it is about involving them. This technique is the most basic movement for instructing when the opponent is caught. Try gripping the opponent like this. When you grip, there are various ways to release, but this is the most basic, this form. And then lift it up smoothly like this in the shoulder. This movement that comes out of a Western person's shoulder is basically this form. The most basic muscle usage at that time is this movement. Therefore, do not focus on the fingertips. Do not focus on this area. So, please practice keeping this in mind as much as possible. Therefore, try gripping with both hands. Even in this form, interestingly, when you try to grip with both hands, it comes off like this. The shoulder is like this, opening in this way. But if it opens, you can also throw the opponent down in reverse. Even if you try from here, it also comes off so smoothly from here. In various forms, it's similar to the shoulder, isn't it? Therefore, even at this moment, focus on the current movement, the back. Then, when you can use the back muscles, you are free like now. So next is for fun. For example, in terms of small sword techniques, there is something called neck sword receiving, like this. Everyone here is taking the form of receiving a sword to the neck, including myself, actually in Okinawa. This preceding part is considered as receiving a sword to the neck. Whether you receive it here or see this part as receiving a sword to the neck, we often say it's strange if this is not on the inside. Therefore, if you can do this within the shoulder, the reverse must naturally come in. While understanding that, please try doing it while understanding that there is such a part within the shoulder.